WTF is Surrealism? It's an age-old question, but the answer you get will largely depend on who you ask. An art historian might tell you that it was an art movement that began just after World War I, and that was influenced largely by Sigmund Freud's idea of the unconscious mind and focused on the irrational and dreamlike qualities of life. Excuse me. But if you were to ask a surrealist, they might tell you that surrealism is nothing more than the battle between a sewing machine and a bicycle. Let's look at some examples. What you're looking at here is Murray Oppenheim's object, which is basically just a furry cup and spoon on a saucer. This is a good example of surrealism in that the surrealists wanted to make uncommon associations, often in a playful way, but it could turn out somewhat disturbing. How many surrealists does it take to screw in a light bulb? A fish. Here we're looking at probably the most famous piece of surrealist art, The Persistence of Memory, by its most famous practitioner, Salvador Dali. The art historian Don Ade said, talking about this piece, "The soft watches are an unconscious symbol of the relativity of space and time, a surrealist meditation on the collapse of our notions of a fixed cosmic order." End quote. That sounds about right. I had mentioned before that the Surrealist movement had begun in the early 20th century, just after World War I. What I failed to mention was that the French, as usual, were largely to blame. You're looking at an image of none other than André Breton, one of the French poets and forefathers of the Surrealist movement. I would like to read a brief excerpt of poetry from his Surrealist manifesto. A burst of laughter, of sapphire in the island of Ceylon. The most beautiful straws have a faded color. Under the locks, on an isolated farm, from day to day, the pleasant grows worse. Coffee preaches for its saint, the daily artisan of your beauty. Have we learned anything? Does it even matter? Surrealism says something, I think. But really, you'd have to talk to a surrealist to understand just how batshit crazy they actually are. These people exist, theoretically, somewhere in the space-time continuum. I hope that our time spent together, using technology and other things like our bodies and eternity and everything, has somehow brought us closer to whatever. Basically, surrealism is something that people do or pretend to do, and there's really just no denying that. So, with that said, I bid you adieu.
Just stop your crying, it's a sign of the times. Welcome to the final show. hope you